Hey guys, thanks for listening and tuning in tonight. A big thank you to Hadass and the folks at Ontario Made. So tonight's episode is we're able to find Big Country Raw because Hadass and the wonderful team at Ontario Made connected us. And if in case you don't know, head to supportonteriomade.ca and you'll get to see a really great, local program that is promoting Ontario-made products. As the Ontarian in this podcast, we do a lot of regional focus and what gets made here in Ontario sometimes gets overlooked because we assume, that Ontario is full of, kind of big manufacturers. But big thanks to Hadass and the team at Ontario Made. And then check these guys out at supportonteriomade.ca.
Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Benucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Crying for you here. We had like tornado weather here yesterday. You just.
I thought you guys had heat waves. Aren't you guys like dying of heat?
Yesterday we had a heat wave, and then we got this like epic storm out here.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Geraldine. Where are you? Are you?
I'm kind of southeast Ontario, section. So we were just getting a lot of heat. We are not getting any tornadoes or anything like that. But we have what they call like a heat donut. Apparently, we can't call it a heat dome because we haven't got to the temperatures that are considered a heat dome. But we're in a heat donut.
Yeah.
So apparently, just the air just keeps circulating. They can't get it out, and it just stays here and bakes you a bit. But we have a pool, and my kids are the last day of school today, and everybody's still on a high. So we're like, hang in there. It'll be over.
That's what it is.
Oh man,
that's what it is, right?
Yeah. So, anyways, nice to see you both. So you have some questions for me, and let's get into it. What do you?
Yeah. So we so the podcast that we do, we spend all our time kind of talking to Canadian brands. People are doing amazing things. Both of us harbor a belief that we have Canadians doing amazing things, and we just don't talk about it, right? Like Canadians are just not like that. We don't do a lot of talking. And so we have kind of like spent the last 6 or 7 years going across the country talking to brands. We have like 370 episodes now out, right? And that's all we do is we talk to Canadian founders, Canadian brands, what they're doing, Canadian retailers. And then we talk to Hadass who suggested we talk to you guys, right? And we've definitely seen Big Country Raw around, and kind of seen some of the cool things you're doing. So we thought we get you on and record a little and see what's going on with you and find out about you and Big Country Raw a little bit more, so our folks kind of know who you are and what's going on there.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to just share my story a little bit, how we fell into this. So again, like most pet companies, it always starts as a passion piece. So I would say that Rob and myself have no business being in the business we're in because we're not classically educated to do the job that we have. And truth be told, I always pinch myself a little bit because we've been given this wonderful opportunity in the pet industry, and we kind of fell into it. So the background story is my background is in human resources. I worked for a trade union and then went on to start a family with Rob. And Rob went to school for electrical engineering and program management, and he was working for a company in Burlington, Ontario, doing geostabilized cameras for military aircraft. So as you can imagine, HR and engineering, and here we are in
So
pet.
it totally connects. Like, and then pet. Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. I totally see the
linear.
synergies. Like you were bound to go this route. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, it's like so naturally. Wow, it's so linear. I don't see how you missed it.
Yeah. So we had another passion, which was our love for animals, and we've always had dogs. And we, in the process of getting married and dating and everything, we always had this passion to have a Bernese Mountain Dog. And so on one of our trips to Europe, we ran into, it was family of mine in the Netherlands that had a kennel in the Netherlands that raised Bernese Mountain Dogs, and we were visiting with them, and we both said, as soon as we get married, we're going to buy a puppy from this kennel, and so that's what we did. We got married in October, and by December we had our first puppy from the Netherlands, which was a Bernese Mountain Dog. And that's what started us into talking to the Bernese Mountain Dog Club of Canada. And we decided to show her. And then that led us to say, hey, maybe we should raise puppies. And that kind of got us into this, like, maybe we'll raise some puppies. And so we had this little side hobby where we showed burners and raised puppies. And in that journey, we encountered some health issues with our dogs. And Bernese Mountain Dogs are known to have a lot of health issues. And we knew that getting in. And so that led me to pursuing a passion to find a Bernese Mountain Dog breeder that had like incredible genetics, great health. And that led me to a Berner breeder in Quebec, Anna Marie. And she was from Switzerland, and she had this beautiful pedigree, and everyone knew her and said, if you want the best, healthiest Bernese, you need to go to see Anna Marie. She has the incredible genetics. So talked to Anna Marie, and she agreed to give me a puppy for what we call like a foundation dog for genetics that I wanted to bring to the Canadian families here in Canada with a great genetics. And so I went to see her, and she handed me a puppy, and she was already 9 months old at the time, and her name was Bijou. And Anna Marie spoke more German than French or English, but we managed to come to an agreement, and she handed me some papers about what I should feed Bijou. And it was, I should feed her raw food. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to disappoint Anne Marie right now, but I'm going home with this puppy. She's going to eat kibble because that's convenient for me and what the other dogs eat, and we'll just carry on. Bijou came home, and Bijou was like, I don't eat this stuff. I don't know what you're putting for me, but this stuff is not going to go down. And so, my husband and I are like looking at each other like, well, we got to get her eaten. So we started reading the papers that Anna Marie suggested. And I thought, okay, it can't be that hard. So we live kind of in rural southwestern Ontario. So I called a bunch of local abattoirs and butchers, and they told me I could get this product from them. And so I started making this food for Bijou, and she gobbled it up. And I was like, hey, but there's something to this. Like, her poops are smaller, her coat's fresh. She's in excellent health. Her teeth are completely clean. And then I started thinking about some of the dogs that I had some health issues with. And I started thinking, well, maybe there's more to this diet thing than I'm putting effort against. And so started doing my own research, and really just started put the rest of the dogs and some of them on raw food, and started noticing all this change. And then just like every other person that's done this journey with their pets, when you start eating fresher, better foods, you just recognize the benefit to your pet. You don't recognize what you don't have until you've made this change. And you're like, okay, my dog doesn't smell anymore, doesn't shed as much, the poops are way smaller. Like there's more energy. There's definitely, this food is way better than the processed food that they're eating right now. And so, yeah, whenever we'd have a puppy family, we'd tell them the same thing. We're like, hey, like, don't get me wrong, there's convenience and kibble, but like you can't beat the benefits of fresh raw food, and these are all the benefits. And so then we'd send them home with some food that we had made ourselves for the kennel, and then they would call us, a couple weeks later and say, hey, can't find it, it's too expensive, some more. And then I would say, yes, of course, and I have to tell Rob, oh, by the way, I agreed, that we'd make, this much more food. And he was like, you're killing me. And then in the process of all this, guys, we're also raising a family. So we have 6 kids together. So when we started Big Country Raw, I was working on number 4, or we were working on number 4. So I had 4 children, and I said to Rob, like, listen, hear me out. Awesome job. He was traveling all the time, all over the world, doing projects for the U.S. military. Great job. Great income. But I said, I just need you here with me because we're going to have baby number 4. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take paternity leave. I was due in April, and I'll go back to work in September. So that sounded like a great plan, but obviously Rob and I are overachievers. So
have you gone back yet, or not yet?
I never went back. I never went back. So
guys, I need another 6 months.
Well, he did tell his boss, I'm coming in September. He said, I'm not coming back. I'll come back at Christmas. His boss, like, you're not coming back. I get a chance. I don't think you're coming back. And Rob never went back. And we created Big Country Raw. Big Country Kennels was our kennel name. And so Big Country Raw started, and we just never looked back. We just started creating it commercially and mostly on a D2C basis. Like we were just selling it to friends and family, breeders that we knew. And then the word spread. And then a few first pet specialty retailer called Back to the Bone in Burlington. And he asked if we would make product that he could sell in his retail store. And that's how we started making it commercially for pet specialty. And then that was 11 years ago. And since that time, we've created a business where we're sold in 1,700 pet specialty retailers across Canada. We have a little over 180 employees that work for us. And we're now looking at taking our brand to the US. So that's been the last 11 years in a short nutshell. So that's what we've been doing.
That's
craziness.
That's a run. 180 employees?
Over 180. So
that's a big company.
Yeah, we have our manufacturing facility here in Smithville, which we when we operated out of our home property up until 2018, and we moved here in just the beginning part of 2019, and within a year we added 10,000 square feet, and right now we're currently doing a construction addition which will double our square footage. So we're currently at 30,000 square feet, and we'll be at 60,000 square feet by the end of this year. In addition to that, we have a distribution warehouse in Ottawa, which we did an addition on. So that's, and we also have a pick and pack warehouse in Calgary, which we've outgrown. We moved in there 3 years ago. We've outgrown that, and we've just bought a 2.5 acre piece of land, and we're expanding there and growing as well. So lots of growth happening for us, and staff in Calgary, Ottawa, and Smithville.
Wow.
Craziness.
Yeah, that's impressive. Seriously, wow. Okay.
So yeah, we've been like I said, we've been very blessed to have been doing this with our family, of course. So Rob and myself have done it together. He's not in the office today. He's actually, we went and had 2 more kids after that. So after we had Charlotte was when we started the company. And then we had Violet in 2015, and in COVID we were busy or bored, so we went and had a baby. So we have 5 girls, ages 20 to 10, and then in COVID we had a baby boy. So I have a 3-year-old at home, and he's with his dad today. So yeah, we are kind of crazy. And in addition to all that, we have 2 dogs, 1 cat, 2 miniature horses. We're getting 2 miniature Highland cows. We have 5 goats and a bunny. And, we just love animals and love family and love what we're doing. So
that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but it's awesome. It's crazy, wonderful life.
Okay, so you land in a retail store and you start moving. How did you find that? Like, 'cause when you started, I've got a little bit of I've got some pet experience in my background, right? And then I spent some time speaking at like Global Pet and places like that.
Yeah.
But when you guys started, you were really at the beginning of kind of like the raw movement.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, like, it was really...
There was pioneers ahead of us that took more arrows than we did. Like, we certainly hit the market at a time when there was a lot of interest in more fresh, natural, like less processed foods. I think you might even heard about Rodney and his newest 2 books, The Forever Dog and now The Forever Dog Life. And so certainly there's momentum in this category that we were very fortunate to be part of. I would say in my journey, it was like the first recipes we created were based on like what I thought and what my research and what I was feeding my dogs and having success with, which was like prey model 80-10-10 recipes, and very basic, but getting you like what I would say the 80% there. As we've obviously grown our organization and our company, we've certainly made significant investments, and those investments include that we have an in-house nutritionist with a master's degree in animal sciences in our novice. She formulates all our recipes and has been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And so we started with contract and then moving into actually bringing this in-house. And so that's a big part of our journey for sure. And then just on a production and food safety piece, that's always top of mind for most of our retailers, and even in conversations with even government to that degree, is they're always looking for like, how are you using the information about the products you're creating to create safe regulation around the products. And so for me, as a mom, and just as anyone should be concerned, we're always concerned about our family and the people we live with, as well as our pets, and making sure the products are safe for them and safe to be handled. So we've taken a food safety approach where we have an in-house quality manager. We're HACCP certified. We are actually third-party audited. And for us, moving the our insights on how we handle food safety is a major part of our R&D. So although we don't talk about it a lot, for the purpose of the podcast and for those that are interested in it, we use a process called bacteriophages, which is somewhat interesting. And we've been using this for over 3 or 4 years, and we're now going into the research where we can quantify the data of how successful it is. But the fact that we haven't had any recalls would ascertain that this is working well for us. So it's a natural approach to handling regular pathogens like Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli on raw pet food. And so we apply the phages at the time of production, and then they work to, it's basically they over inhibit so if there's Salmonella, the good bacteria overcomes the bad bacteria and neutralizes it, and then it actually can withstand the freezing process. So when the food is thawed, it actually continues to offer protection to ensure that there's no food safety risk. Of course, that still requires the consumer to handle it by keeping it refrigerated and use it within 3 days, and all those things still come into play. But there's always the option to use other methods that maybe we're more familiar with, which is like HPP or cooking as a kill step. But I think that there's a lot of information and research that we're becoming more aware of that I think can give the level of confidence to consumers and to retailers that the manufacturer that you're purchasing from is taking the necessary care and control to make it safe. And I would say that, speaking as someone who's very passionate about the raw food category, is I don't see that level of diligence and compliance happening in every raw pet food company out there. So Canada is wonderful to do business, and like you've mentioned, it's kind of, we're under we don't always take the recognition we deserve. But I would say on this piece, in the absence of regulation, there is an element of due diligence that consumers need to take when purchasing raw pet food, because not all of it is created equally, and there are significant risks out there. And if you speak to the veterinarian community, they unfortunately encounter those risks on a more frequent basis than the rest of us. So I think that's, but we're working really closely with the veterinarian community to overcome this. I've great conversations with University of Guelph. We're having another meeting again tomorrow. We're hoping to bring them out again. We've had the research group and the partners from the University of Guelph out for tours last year, and the professors are looking to do that again, once again. We attended the CVMA last year in Quebec City, and we're hoping to be able to continue those conversations with the CVMA and even with Health Canada, so we can start to provide just the level of confidence that consumers and the veterinarian community need to have about raw pet food, and then yet trying to articulate how a consumer can go to market with a retailer or even online and identify when they're dealing with a brand that is safe. And that's the challenge for me, is it's not easy to do that, because not everybody's going to want to share what they're doing to provide that.
It's also not, because like raw always sounds simpler than it really is, right? Because I know a lot of like pet parents, and we've heard some of those stories, right? Like, oh, we were feeding them raw and they got sick, and you're like, what did you buy? Well, I don't really know. Why would you feed them raw from someone that you don't really like? What? Yeah. Would you buy steak for the family from someone you don't know? Like, it's not a thing, right? Like, why would you do that, right? Like, but it's always so surprising, right? So it's hey, no discredit to our journey either. Like, we didn't have the food plant that we have right now, or the processes or care and control that we have in our industry right now that we had when we first started. So I want to be very mindful of the fact that there are lots of very passionate startup companies that want to get there. I think that, however, we need to be very transparent about this, because this is a growing category, and there is a lot of concern there from my side, as well as let's be honest. I think we've done a great job of trying to articulate our brand, Big Country Raw. But if there's going to be a public health risk because of raw pet food, all of us go down together. Yeah, we all hold and jump. So as a category, as what I consider ourselves as a leader in this category, it's important to me that when I have these conversations with other competitors or with retail partners or anybody, is like to say, we really need to articulate how we're different and what we're doing differently to make sure that the consumer understands the difference between buying it from a pet specialty retailer that's worked with a brand like myself to ensure that, or if you're just calling someone from Kijiji or, and buying raw pet food.
So let me ask you, because I don't have a pet, so back it up a lot. for the two of you is, okay, so like what exactly is the raw food? Like, what are we talking here? Are we talking you sending a steak to the house, a pork chop to the house? Are you talking in moderately processed? Because to your point, I think, when I hear raw, I think, okay, I'm thinking it's obviously uncooked. It'd be something easy, like whether it's some meat, throwing some vegetables in, it makes sense for an animal, and away you go.
Yeah, so it's essentially it's more than just raw meat. It's raw meat, raw organ meat, fruits and vegetables, and in our situation, we also add like some essential vitamins and minerals that would not be apparent in the meat itself. That would make a complete and balanced diet. But 100% that, Kenny, it's raw meat, bone, organ meat. We process it frozen, we package it, we freeze it again, we ship it to the retailer frozen. You buy it from your retailer in a frozen state. You take it home, thaw it in your refrigerator, and you serve it to your pet without any further steps. And so the challenge, of course, is like what you and I recognize, that we buy raw chicken from our grocery store. We're usually going to take it home. We're going to prepare it. We're going to cook it. We're not going to, prepare that raw. And we recognize that if we did that, we'd probably get sick. Here's the difference is that we accept a level of risk when we buy the raw chicken. So we wash our hands, we wash the kitchen counter utensils and stuff. And there's just seems to be somewhat of a concern from the veterinary community that the raw food that we're taking into our kitchens is also going to have pathogen risk to it. And that those pathogens are going to pass on to our pets, and they're going to shed that in our houses and make us and our family members unwell. The risk, the perception of risk, however, is that your dogs are very adept to handle bacteria, and they do a lot of things like we don't want to maybe talk about on your podcast, but your dog, he drinks water from the street and cleans, behind
all those things.
So it encounters bacteria that you and I would, like that. So it's well adapted to handle some pathogen load, but too much, of course, and your dog's going to get very unwell. And here's the situation: is that because Canadian pet food is completely unregulated, anyone, including myself at the time, could get into the business of making pet food. And so without any food safety controls in place, they could create a pet food and call it Kenny's raw food, and start selling it on Facebook Marketplace or on Kijiji, and then your people show up at your doorstep and buy food from you, and then that food ends up being the food that makes someone sick, because you might not know what you need to know about food safety and how you're going to control pathogens. And that's the risk factor here. That's
a big risk factor. I mean, it's already risky enough, buying raw meats and bringing them home, like for human consumption in human consumption stores. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've already got issues. Like, you gotta keep things clean. For humans, most of the shit we have to cook. Like, you can't just go eat raw chicken.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some assumptions I guess you probably should make that, yes, the pet's an animal, and yes, a dog might be a carnivore or whatever, but we're also talking, these pets have been so humanized, for lack of a better. We're not talking a wild we're not talking a freaking wolf running around the woods hunting deer. I mean, this is a whole different, these are pets, man. These are mini humans almost.
What are you talking about? Sophie's like all 12 pounds of mini poodle. Like,
I've watched Sophie chase a squirrel. Sophie would never survive more than 2 hours in any wilderness.
I actually think that the squirrel would kick her ass, actually.
You know what? And that was a squirrel. So if she ran into a raccoon in the wild, she's dinner for the raccoon.
Yeah.
So bottom line, Sophie ain't going to make it.
It's worth mentioning, Kenny, that even though, like, to your point, that they are highly domesticated, they still contain all the DNA required to eat like they were designed. They're carnivores by nature. They're designed to eat and process food in fresh and raw state. And so they're not. But let's start with, like, it's always I don't know the actual term for this, but you need to the process of food safety starts at the very start. Quality ingredients and taken from CFIA inspected facilities and processed in a safe food manner. So, like, Big Country Raw's facility although is not CFIA inspected, has all the same care and control that is if it were a CFIA inspected facility. So we have a food safety plan that includes temperature monitoring from the moment the food shows up through the entire the food process. There's test and hold. Like, there's so much care.
Yeah, that's you're doing that, but I guess that's where I worry about it too. Like, I love the fact that you're doing that, but we just went through the Kijiji sort of Craigslist comparison. So what's going to happen? That's where highly likely, that's where the sickness, someone a group of animals not making it, potentially spreading into the house, and who knows what happens. To your point before, I mean, that's an industry shutdowner.
Yeah, and so this is the piece that I find the biggest challenge for ourselves is and really it starts with educating the consumer, because I think that when we get that, we're like, okay, we're not going to buy just anything for our pet when we recognize that there's actually a food safety risk here. And so I think consumers are getting their head around that, especially as this category continues to grow and it becomes more mainstream in your pet specialty retailer, and they recognize that the product there is not equal to the product that you're buying, in a brown box with no label. And so when there are folks that are saying we're feeding raw, it's sometimes you beg to ask the question, are you doing your due diligence? Are you asking these questions? And yeah, I do recognize that, there's so many people out there that'll say, I've been buying it from Kenny, Kenny for so many years and never had an issue.
Which could be true. Listen, I have never had an issue with salmonella in the house either. But if Canadian Health, if food inspection came in, I'll shit you not, I mean, they're going to have problems in the house.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm cooking for humans, for family. I mean, I've been doing this for a lot of years. Yeah, I've made it through. But right. But that isn't necessary to give me a level of confidence. Like I'm not feeding the neighborhood.
For sure.
You're talking about a level of confidence that I have to have in you as a manufacturer to feed my pets. I find sometimes that, I mean, we don't need to be overregulated. We're already overregulated as a country, I think, in the large respects. But that's what also makes us Canadian. I mean, we just like to make sure that we're safe from all angles. I don't know how we do that.
Saying we have to have rules or something, Kenny? I don't get it.
Here's the thing, though, Kenny, what is worth potentially mentioning, because, I would be remiss if I didn't say it, is that if there's going to be a pet food recall, because the Canadian, there is regulation about that. If there is, salmonella bacteria, the Health Canada is going to step in and they're going to issue recalls. Right. So there has been no recalls on raw pet food in Canada. There is lots of recalls on pet food, and especially dry food. Thousands of millions of tons of pet food get recalled all the time in North America, Canada, the US, because of things like salmonella. And so what I would usually tell people is recognize that all pet food, in whatever state it's in, is a risk for you or your pet. And you need to make sure that even like in that sense, when you see kibble and kids touching kibble and stuff like that, I'd be like, okay, well, there's risk there too. And there's just this idea, it's cooked, it's going to be fine. But there's a lot of bacteria on that food too, and especially pet food treats and all these things. So all these things come down to educate yourself about where you're purchasing from, make sure you're buying it from a reputable supplier, then educate yourself on what food safety risks exist on any type of format of pet food you use, then make sure your family's taking those steps to make sure they're handling it properly, and then overall just use like good common sense about this stuff, right? And then everybody's better and safer for it. So yeah,
it's I think the one cautionary tale, right? Like for folks that are coming up behind you, right? Because I think you, in a lot of ways, have set the standard for what raw is supposed to look like, right? Is like Kenny and I did this. They're kind of an obscure group, but we did this talk. Kenny did this talk with a group called Sprouts Canada. Okay. And they do like sprouts, like bean sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, stuff like that. And they have been grappling with this issue for, what is it, Kenny? Like almost 20 years. Like, so 20 years ago, they had I think it was a listeria scare, right? And so, kind of, if you're old enough, if you're Kenny's age, I like to pick on Kenny when I can. So if you're Kenny's age, you remember like not being able to get bean sprouts and those sort of things because of bacteria scares. And they are still fighting this. Like, because they were saying that in the US on the
the FDA sites, it's still
FDA
listed as
it actually is still listed. Bean sprouts is still listed as something you shouldn't buy.
20 years later, there's still warnings, right?
Like as an industry, do you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of one of these things where you go, if you are in this industry, you got to make sure that you're in this, because you're not wrong, right? As one of these things takes everybody down at the same time. Right?
Well, and I think that's the fear I sort of have sometimes, like when we're talking and the two of you are talking, that there's sort of regulations and yet there's really no regulations. The bottom line is, I can't I can find it, but I'd be hard pressed to find unpasteurized milk products widely available in the States. Really not available, not legally available in Canada, right?
Yep.
You look at something like this, it still feels Wild West in that, I don't have as much a problem someone making a jam at home, and it might not be 100% food safe. I get it. I mean, your fruit needs to be clean, but you start to live. You start looking at the pathogens and things. You're probably less at risk than when you're talking meat byproducts, etc. And then when you're buying shit off Kijiji, like, do you really want to buy something off? Like, I got a hacksaw in the garage, man, and I've got a little freezer. Like, really? It's like, would you do this would you do this normally, folks? Like, would you normally go up to a garage and say, hey, you know what? You got that side of beef still kicking around? Like, really?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, Kenny, people just need to have more conversations with you, because it sounds
Get to it, man. Get to it. Get out of here. Let's.
Like, you thinking, like
Oh, yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. I know.
So it's kind of cool. So you're basically everywhere in specialty pet in Canada, and then are you guys
locations? Wow.
Yeah. So are you getting ready to go to the US, or you've already gone to the US, or?
Oh, that's a big part of what we've been doing the last year or so, or what I've been doing, is working on those relationships and talking to the people in the US and understanding, which partners, which distributors. So there's a few challenges that we will have in entering the US, and again, it comes down to food safety again. But
you're gonna have to manufacture in the States. I guess my first question would be or you could have to set up plants somewhere like Buffalo. Like,
we can't manufacture in Canada.
Because the meat going back and forth is not gonna. You can do it, but wow, that's gonna be interesting.
Avian bird flu would be like the number. If it's not avian bird flu, we're going to be dealing with some other
pick something.
Zoology.
Pick a pathogen.
It's gonna happen. So as it stands right now, I would like, and I shouldn't go down this route, because every time I do, I get a little bit over animated about it. But here's the thing: Canada allows raw pet food made in the United States to enter Canada.
Yeah.
But the United States does not allow raw pet food made in Canada to enter the US. And so I believe that this is an imbalance of trade, and I think that we should work to correct that. However,
you might get excited about this.
Good luck. You know what you're going to do? You're going to shut down both sides, because neither side should probably allow it without some regulation.
Yeah, so we'll get there. But I, at the same time, I welcome, good progressive brands coming into Canada and bringing great products to the Canadian marketplace and for Canadian consumers. I would love to be able to produce this in Canada, because I think we have one of the richest resources in Canada for us to make things like pet food. And I'd love to share that with the United States and take that economic advantage to the US. Recognize that probably in order to get started, we're going to have to start operations in the US, and then we'll see where it goes. So
yeah, that would have been my gut feel too. I mean, I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's worth the hassles of dealing with it. Well, 2 federal governments, and then who the hell knows how many state, and you just open at a quagmire of fun.
Yeah. To me, sometimes some of these things, I think when I think of everything that we've done in our business, Kenny, and I think about all the times that I was said, you can't do that. We started with a D2C brand, and then we went into pet specialty. They said that doesn't happen. You have to shut down one channel. We're like, we're going to do both. And there's so many times.
I have no doubt, my dear. I have no doubt that you'll do this.
So maybe someday. But I'm already politicking and lobbying to have conversation. We'll get there.
But I think that's how it starts, right? And you need to, again, if it's going to be anybody, then it might as well be you, in the sense that you're already doing a lot of the right things, and you're trying to do the right things, and you're working in an unregulated world, but you're regulating yourself. And it sounds like you're doing a really good job at it, and you've got standards that are, if anything, then if you're government, you're thinking, just model it. They're already doing it. Just model it. And then whatever safeguards you want to add to it, because you're government and you're just going to do stupid things, but at least work with somebody who's already doing it and see if it works, and they're set standard, and, giddy up.
Okay. So when I get there, I'll call you, and you and I will have a conversation.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
We should have covered most of the households on the West Coast by then, so he'll be ready. It'll be fun. Right. I'll make sure I keep him on track. So
awesome.
just try to, walk as well as you can.
can I switch gears for a minute?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
One of the most amazing things that we've been really privileged to see is we've got all these Canadian founders who are what we call power couples. And there's some really amazing ones. There's like the ones that come to mind. There's Sheena and Russell that make Made with Local, which is a local cereal bar out in Nova Scotia. There's Jeff and Alicia Leahy, making potato chips. Like, they make amazing potato chips that take on Lay's and, kind of people like that. So there's kind of like countless. Did you ever think you and
Rob?
Your husband, Rob, would be doing this together? Like, did you ever think you'd be in business together? Like engineer and
like, be married is one thing. Be married and also, that's
married,
there's a lot
children, working, right?
There's a lot of stuff going on there, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Like, I would say that, like, even when Rob's dad owned his own business, and a lot of his uncles owned their own businesses. They were not farming, they were running a sawmill, or they're running a sod farm, or they were doing something entrepreneurial. And so I knew that it was in Rob's blood to, like, try to do something. But every proposal that he brought to me, like, that we talked about, I was like, yeah, not that one. And I would say that the raw pet food was one that we kind of fell into. But once we found it was both something that we could do well. I felt I was very passionate about it. And Rob, of course, has his technical side of things. So I think that we're a great match. Like, Rob can project anything out. And I think that's what you need. You need something, like, we call them an integrator, but he basically can take any of my ideas and say, okay, how do we action that into where we are today? So he's not here. I wish he was, be able to talk to his side of the puzzle, but I think we are like that duo. I handle sales marketing. He does finance operations. And I think some of the benefit, and we hear it all the time from our team that gets to work with us, is like, we're a married couple. So I can finish what he's thinking. And I know already what he would say if he was here. Right. And so those things are just, you get the sense that we recognize that what we have, we talk to people all the time. They're like, I could never work with my spouse. Yeah. And we didn't start this company saying we needed to do this together. Initially, the plan was that Rob was going back to work, and then, we would do this on a part-time basis or figure something else out. But we found out that we actually just love it doing it together. And we haven't got sick of each other yet. So yeah, it's going really well.
Really, hats off to you, right? Because I do think we hear that a lot. People who say, no, absolutely not, I couldn't work with my spouse. But I think we've seen it, not a lot of you, but we've seen a handful of you, and we're always amazed, right? Because I think
I'm always amazed at, because it's to have two sort of entrepreneurial spirits, like in the same house, like spouses. It's hard. I mean, typically you seem to have like a yin and yang, right? It's someone's very this and someone's very that. Yeah. And business is tough on the best day.
Yeah,
kids are brutal on any day because there's a lot of work going on. Being a mom, being a parent, being a spouse, and then you got business. That's a lot of shit going on. Like, that's a lot of.
Well, no, and you've got 8 dogs and a llama.
You got a farm.
Right? 4 mini cows, a couple of mini pigs. I thought I heard a zebra in there somewhere.
Seriously, I think there's panthers or some panda. I can't remember what it was, but
that's just to keep the kids busy so they leave us alone. Okay. But I think at least for myself, on my side, it's about serving the other person. And so if we're going to talk marriage advice, it's always like, if you think in the purpose of my higher purpose is to serve him, and his higher purpose to serve me, and our purpose together is to serve each other, and that. So I always find it seems to always work. Right. And that's what marriage is ultimately, is putting the other person ahead of your own and doing that. And I think kids will teach you that more than ever, is that you can absolutely love somebody, or some more than you can potentially even want to love and care for yourself. And everybody that's ever had kids said, do anything
for that, though, right? Yeah, this unconditional craziness that you just don't get until you have them.
And maybe we've just maybe 6 kids means that our hearts are maybe Dr. Seuss here. Maybe we're just so big. But yeah, I'm very blessed to have an amazing husband, to partner, and
that's amazing.
I'm grateful.
That's cool, man.
Oh, that's really amazing.
It's exhausting. No. You've completely exhausted me with that.
Well, I know sometimes I had a graduation party last night at my so my grade 7er had a grade 7 party at my house in the afternoon. So I had like 27 kids doing a swimming party in my backyard. And then they all left, and then it was like quickly get changed everyone because my grade 12 was graduating that night. So then we raced to grade 12 grad to dinner, graduation, got back at 10 o'clock at night. And then she had a party at our house. So Rob and I were out there with the pizza oven and doing a pizza party till like midnight last night. And yeah, so that's what I mean. You do 2 parties in one day, and you just gotta go.
Just gotta do it, man. Just gotta do it.
So how old are your 6?
So starting the oldest is 2018, 15, 13, 10, and then the boys.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Wow.
And Kenny's got 2. I've got 3. His are
28, 27.
Yeah. And then I'm similar to you, but I only have 3. So I've got a 22, an 18, a 16-year-old. So yeah. So we just finished doing the graduation stuff too for the 18-year-old. So
it's awesome, seeing them do that and get awards and and then I'm sure you guys recognize it doesn't feel that long ago. Like I'm like literally reliving my 12 grad, right? And they're looking at me like, you are so old, you have no idea. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I thought my parents thought, and I can't believe I'm saying it out loud, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, the amount of things the amount of things you say that you're thinking, shit, I think I got that exact line 40 years ago.
Oh, I know.
And I recycled it. You're thinking, oh my God, I've become them.
The only cool thing is that like we have a 3-year-old. So like in a way, sometimes I'm like, that was the biggest mistake of our lives. And then the other sense is like, it's not over yet, right? Like people are like, this door's done, it's on, it's over. And I'm like, I don't even have a kid yet that started kindergarten. Like I got
you're starting all over. Like you just reset.
I like, and we have a school closing program tonight, and Rob's like, are we going to that thing? I'm like, Rob, we're never not going, because like we will be going all the way up until Eric is done, right? And then by that time, more than likely, our oldest is right. She's gonna have kids, so we're gonna be going for our grandkids.
Well, see, you probably got grandchildren at that time. Because by the time this one's 17,
22.
You got the other ones that are coming in at 30.
Yeah.
I mean, you 35 almost.
Yeah.
Like the odds are, you got a lot of shit going on. Holy moly.
Yeah. So that's awesome. All right. So
it's fantastic. I mean, good on you.
Yeah.
You definitely need energy.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Amazing.
It is amazing. It's just, I don't know. It's just,
but I
think,
I love that we're able to like masterfully balance both. Was something that we're taking off in our business to kind of help us with all this. Is something somewhat new to us, but worth mentioning because a lot of companies are talking about it. It's called EOS. So Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we've just started that journey with our leadership team here. And maybe just to kind of reset that balance a little bit, because we're growing so quickly and there's just so much opportunity. Rob and I are just like, hold on, we're only 2 people and we've got a lot of other things too that we always got to prioritize. And for me, I never want to live with regret. I never want to say to my kids I wasn't there because this Big Country Raw took priority over that.
Right.
And so one always balance that. And so we're trying EOS, and so far we're a little bit into it, and it feels like a really, really awesome thing for our company. And
it can be a really effective tool. Like we've used it in places where it's been really effective. We've used it in places where it got a little bit too dogmatic, I think, as well. So
it's like everything.
You also like, both of you feel like you have a firm grasp on what your priorities are. So then EOS should fit in there nicely. Right? Like, I think when you don't know, then EOS becomes the driving factor, and then it can really like kind of overwhelm the business.
Exactly.
Right. So,
like everything in life, you pull out the best parts that work for you. And I mean, which kind of negates the system, but who cares? I mean, do whatever's best for you and how it works for you guys. Let me ask you, have the kids, I mean, because you've got a couple, has anybody shown any interest in?
So like they've all kind of worked. Like even when we were working from our home property, our oldest, who's now 20, she was like stickering lids, and we always made her help out. And so she worked for a bunch of years here even, and she went off and she's gone to school for sales and marketing, and she's doing her own thing. She's actually doing a lot with photography. My other daughter works here after school and on Saturdays answering phones and doing some stuff in customer service or helping out in order fulfillment, making deals. Or they've all, and even our 15-year-old, she started just this summer. She started 3 days ago. Took a little selfie with her in our thing of when she was working at her home property, and now she's actually working in the business as well. But they're not involved at any like decision making leadership kind of part. They're just employed by the business per se. Here's the thing, like Rob and I felt that this was our passion. Like obviously to them, it might not be what they want to do. And the way we've looked at it and we've read the books, like Every Family's Business, is I never want my kids to feel like they have to step into the business. And at the same time, if we're true to the EOS model, just because you're a family doesn't mean that you actually get hired to do the job that the business needs. You've got the family bubble, you got the business bubble. So the way that Rob and I look at it is we're going to put the business first when it comes to the business. And if your kids see an opportunity that you want, then you just need to earn it just like any other person that gets hired by the business. If you don't have the skills or experience or know-how, and unfortunately, if I put myself in the owner's seat, there's many things in this business that I have no business to regulate or know about. And I'm very, very happy that we've been able to hire some people that come to work every day with an incredible skill set that do that for us. Because half the time I'm sitting here looking at Rob going like, do you know what the heck we're doing? You got any ideas? He's like, no. Fake it till you make it. They believe that we do. So, it's a little bit of that. And then
it's all good.
And then just arming yourself with, a little bit of, we have some mentorship. Rob was on a tech committee. We talked to a lot of other business owners. We kind of immersed ourselves in some books and listen to podcasts and literally sometimes it's all a little bit about, I love the Malcolm Gladwell, like blink idea is sometimes it really is just about like what inherently know is how you should respond. And it seems, it's true.
Good for you.
Love it.
Very cool.
Thank you for taking time to talk on this podcast with us. We really
got into everything you wanted to talk about, but that's us.
No,
that's all we wanted
to talk to you. That's actually the only thing we wanted to do.
The rest of it we don't really care much about. I just find it amazing.
After itself, yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it, guys, for sure. And
very impressive.
Maybe next time you guys can wrangle Robin to talking to you. Who knows what he's.
We would love it.
We would
love it. Yeah.
So if people wanted to find
you just tell him that, listen, we already committed you to a show.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Just tell him he's doing it.
And then
then maybe you guys can like come back to us and say, okay, this is what we heard. Do it when Rob's not here, and then
exactly.
Yeah.
If people wanted to find you, find the brand.
bigcountryrob.ca, like the website, good place to start. If they want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. Can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, just Geraldine Brouwer. And I love hearing from people, customers, retailers, anybody, anytime. Just shoot me an email. Pretty open to having a conversation with anybody. So.
That's awesome.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
I'm so tired.
Okay. Thanks for listening, guys.
That's a lot.